Hi, everybody. Today, our target is going to be talking about what is a perimeter. I think we've talked about it in the past, so we're going to just talk about it a little bit more today in detail. So, if I look at this next piece, we want to find the amount of space inside of a shape. That's called something different. That is called the area, which we've been practicing. And if you remember, when we've done area, we have used the formula area equals base times height, and that will find the distance or not distance, but the amount of space inside of a shape. Okay. What we are going to talk about today is the distance around the outside of a shape. And when we talk about the distance around the outside of a shape, that is called the perimeter, which you can see right next to the shape. And I know a lot of times when we think about perimeter, I like to think about I don't know if you've seen movies before where they say secure the perimeter. You're trying to make sure that all the outsides of your fortress or castle or what may have you is protected from the bad guys. Okay? So there's some rules that we have to follow when you find the perimeter of a shape. The sides of the shape must connect together or be closed for the shape to have a perimeter. Okay, so it has to be a closed shape in order for it to have a perimeter. So, for instance, this picture, if you look here, and they have an arrow drawn right there, there's a gap. So there would be no perimeter for that shape because it is not a closed shape. Okay. This is a closed shape. You can see this one right here. So therefore this one could have a perimeter because there's a distance all the way around the outside. Now this one, again, oops, click my pen here. This one here does not have a perimeter because it has that little space it's not complete. There's not a space there. But if I look at this one now, this is a closed circle. So yep, it will have a perimeter because you can go all the way around the outside of it. Okay. So if you are finding perimeter, let's say we have this shape. A strategy, what kind of a strategy could you use to make sure that we're adding all the sides? So here's the key word. We're going to be adding all the sides together. Okay. So for me, I would think, well, you can just start somewhere and pick. They're showing you there's 6, and then add the 5, add the 3, and the 4, and the 7. So they really just went, starting with this side and then went all the way around and making sure that they added each side as they went, careful not to miss one. So when we do that, you add them all together, and they got an answer of 25. You can see right here. Okay, so the perimeter of that shape would be 25, and they didn't forget to label centimeters. That's an important part too when you're finding the perimeter, the distance around the outside. So the perimeter of that shape is 25 centimeters. Okay. So now if I'm looking, how do you find the perimeter of rectangles and squares? That's the next piece we're going to look at. So if I'm looking at the perimeter of a rectangle, I've got a length of 10 here, and then I've got a width of 4, okay? So when I'm looking at that, I'm going to take my 4, and then I can't forget that just because, so there's a 4 on this side. Oh, that's really thin. Let's try this one. There's a 4 here. Even though there's not a measurement on this side, I know that because a rectangle, opposite sides are the same, so I know that side is also 4. And that goes for the opposite side, oops, here too, so I know that's 10. So then I know the opposite side of this one is also 10 because opposite sides are the same in a rectangle. So now I can add the 4 and the 4 and the 10 and the 10. If I add all of those together, I'm going to get 28 centimeters. And again, they labeled, so the answer for this one is 28 centimeters. Okay. So we need to remember that we use centimeters to stand, or the cm to stand for centimeters. That's kind of the rule for us. Now, on this one, another way you can show it would be to do 10 plus 14, right? Or 10 plus 4. That would give me 14. And actually, I could also take and double the 14 or take it times 2. And that's going to give me the same perimeter of 28 centimeters. So if you can see that here and here, here's 28 and here's 28. So they're really taking this, which are these two, putting them together, getting that answer, and then doubling it or taking it times 2, because then really it means they're taking these two and putting them on as well. So that would give you the 28 centimeters, okay? So that matches the first one you did. Now what about a perimeter of a square? How do we do that? Well, in a square, we know that a square has all 4 sides that are the very same length. So if I know that is 5, I could simply take the 5 and multiply it times 4, because there are 4 sides, 1, 2, 3, 4, on a square. So if I take 5 times 4, I'm going to get 20. Now, could you go through the work of adding? Sure could. If I take 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5, that tells me 5, 10, 15, 20. Am I still going to get 20 centimeters? Yes, I will. But if you want to take the time and just multiply it by 4 instead, you could certainly do that. So the perimeter of that square is 20 centimeters. Now, if I said, find the perimeter of this rectangle, I want you to pause this video, take a minute, and see if you can find the perimeter of this rectangle. I'm going to keep going, but for you to practice, you could pause and try to get it, okay? So for this one, we're going to add 6 plus 6 plus 10 plus 10. So if I add all those together, I'm going to get 32 centimeters, okay? So that would be the answer for the perimeter of this rectangle would be 32 centimeters, okay? The other thing you could do was you could take 6 plus 10 and get 16, and then take that 16 and then multiply it by 2. Remember, you're taking, it would be this side and this side, and adding them together, and then doubling it, which would be the same as this side, and then adding it. Either way, the answer is still going to be 32 centimeters. Okay, so why did the steps work in the second method? I think we've talked about that before, just saying doesn't matter if you add up all the sides or if you take the length plus the width and double it. That will also give you the perimeter of that rectangle. Now I want you to try to find the perimeter of the square. So we have a square here, and I know one side is 4 centimeters. Now again, if you want to pause it and try to figure out on your own what's the perimeter of this square, and then find your answer, and then you could continue watching. So for me, I'm going to keep going. So I have 4, and I could take it times 4, and I know 4 times 4 is 16. The other way I could do it is if I didn't want to multiply it by 4, I could just do 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4. 4 4s. So I've got 4, 8, 12, 16. So I still get the same answer. It's just that this time I added it all together. Either way, you're still going to get 16 centimeters. Okay? So the perimeter of a rectangle is 2 times the sum of the base and the height, would be the power concept for this. And then the perimeter of a square is the length of one side times 4. Either way, whether you multiply or if you decide you want to add up the sides, you're still going to be able to find the perimeter of a 4-sided shape.